So we now have everybody in. So I'd like to welcome everybody to today's session. This is the Women in IT session. It is 6.0. The title of the session is Women in the Mainframe World. Yes, we exist and we are thriving. Again. Anyway, yes, we exist and we are thriving. It is a fantastic presentation by Michelle Harris and Dolly Poppet of Macro 4. So I'm now going to hand over to Michelle. And sorry, before I do that, I want all participants, please remain on mute. Social media for the conference are hashtag GSE UKC and GSE UK at GSE UKC. The presentation and the slides are recorded. The presentation is available for download from the website. Please put any questions you have, and you're welcome to ask anything into the chat. And at the end, please remember to put in your feedback. I'll put the link in the chat towards the end of the presentation. Michelle has it on her slides as well. And you can also get it from your BYOA, your Bring Your Own Agenda. So I think that's really it. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this, Michelle. So over to you.
Okay, thanks, Aileen, for the intro. So this is a session that I ran at the sort of in-person GSE last November, and Dolly and I did that then. So Aileen asked us to do it again for this session, and I'll come on to explain why Dolly isn't here. She has a very good excuse, and so it will be just me. So unfortunately, you'll have to talk to or listen to just my voice for the time. So I think we wanted to do a session, and I'll talk sort of through what Dolly said previously, but we wanted to do a session to sort of just explain to people a little bit about why we're in the industry and why we're quite happy in the industry doing what we do. So just to start off a little bit about us. Who are we? I'm Michelle Harris, and I manage mainframe R&D for Macro 4, and I also head up customer services for EMEA. So I have teams in Europe and in India and various places around the world. So I mean, I started out in IT a long time ago now, and I did a BSc in computer science and maths, but I really didn't think that that was what I wanted to do when I started out with doing the degree. I thought that I would want to do physics or chemistry or something like that, and took computer science really because it was a new thing, and I thought it would be interesting, and very quickly realized that I really liked it and that I didn't like physics or chemistry at that level, so that I moved into that. And I started off and I joined a software house, moved to Germany, lived in Germany and Switzerland for a bit, and then moved to the UK quite some time ago for Macro 4. And I started out in support, what's now referred to as customer services, and a team of all men that I joined. And I do remember sort of in the first few months really of being at Macro 4, answering the phone one day and picking it up and saying, "Hello, Macro 4, can I help you?" And they, the voice at the other end of the phone said, "Oh, I didn't think Macro 4 had any women." And I said, "Oh, just the one in support." And I really don't think that would happen nowadays, but it just makes me smile when I remember that time. So Dolly isn't here today because I'll explain a little bit more, but she's actually on maternity leave, which is great for Dolly. She had a baby girl just over 3 weeks ago. But if she was here, then her background is that she did a degree in computing in India, and she worked in India in a software house as well, actually, and also did some teaching of undergrads in Java as well in India before she came to the UK. And then she left the industry for a little while, for a few years, but really decided that that was what she wanted to do. She loved coding, and I'm not just saying that, she would genuinely say that if she were here. So not just saying that because she's on my team. She genuinely loved coding, and that was her dream job. So she saw the ad for Macro 4 and was delighted. That's what she said, to get the role. So we're both very busy people, obviously, in our jobs. But as with everybody, really, whether you're a man or a woman, whatever you're doing, a lot of what you do in the world is not about work. It's about your life outside of that. And so we wanted to share a little bit about our sort of life outside of work. So it's a little picture of me with my family. I actually have a son who's grown up as well. He's 33 and we see him a lot. And I was thinking that most recently they've a puppy, so we're puppy sitting sometimes now as well. And I'm officially an empty nester since last autumn, in that all three of my daughters are now at uni. So I spend quite a lot of time going through assessments with them, sort of reviewing that before it's submitted. And apparently one of my daughters says that all of the other mums have the same joke, that we all think we're doing the degree alongside our children, but it's interesting to do that. And Dolly, as you can see here, has now 3 children. You can just about see the bump when this picture was taken last October. And her eldest daughter is just about to go into secondary school this autumn. So she's sort of busy also helping her with 11 plus exams, and obviously very busy at the moment outside of work with her new baby girl, because she has her middle one is 2.5 years old now, I believe. So that's her. So we're very busy, really, both in work and out. And you often get the question, how do you do it? And that's what women say to other women who have a career. So it's not just about men saying it, but when you think about it, you don't have that asked of a man. Which is interesting. Why don't we ask that of a man? Why is it something that somehow maybe it implies that maybe we shouldn't be doing it, having a career and having a family, or doing a load of other things? So, you know, it's a difficult thing to answer, really. And when I first started preparing for this, the best answer I could come up with was, well, you just do. that's what you do. That's what we want to do. But it's a kind of it's not a helpful question. So I thought a better question was maybe, why do we do it, to sort of explain to people who might ask that question. So again, sort of from a personal perspective, Dolly and I both wanted to sort of talk about why we do it in particular. And so I think for me, I've worked for software houses for virtually all of my career. And in particular with Macro 4, who I've worked with for a long time, because we're a software house, there's constantly a challenge coming with the new technology, because we have to get to know that new technology so that we can talk to our customers about it, because they're saying, oh, what's your story on cloud? What's your story on blockchain? So we have to get involved with that. So that keeps it interesting. It keeps it changing. Yes, I've been with, it looks like on paper, the same company for a long time, but it's always been different. There's been a lot of change over that time with what we do, with how the job is, with what the technology is that the products are working on. And also for me, with sort of a family, then it was very useful for that, to have that flexibility within the working day. So, going back, if you were sort of delayed, let's say you needed to speak to a teacher about something, then it didn't matter, because you just came into the office later. I'm talking pre-pandemic now, where the working day was sort of based around the office. But always in IT, you've kind of had that flexibility that you could start late, you could finish late, which is one of the benefits of being in any IT role, I think. And for me personally, I've worked part-time well, almost full time, sort of the equivalent of 4 days a week, but spread over 5 days. And it's been very good for me, I think personally, that I've been given extra responsibilities, even though I was working part time. So I haven't found it limiting that I needed to balance the needs of bringing up my family with working. So that's been another really positive thing for me. And I've mentioned already that, and it's a shame that Dolly couldn't be here today. She did do some recordings which were done some time ago as a sort of a backstop for the in-person GSE, but they weren't coming out audio quality wise correctly. So that's why we decided when we'd been practicing for the session that it was better not to sort of confuse things by having Dolly. But so Dolly, by her own sort of admission, just loves coding. She really likes to do it. And actually, her 11-year-old comes up to the screen sometimes and says, "Oh, that looks interesting. That looks a lot more interesting than what Daddy does, because Daddy's an accountant, apparently." Whereas that just looks a bit boring to her. So, hopefully she has a little mini coder in the making as well. But for Dolly, she's found in particular that hybrid working that we've been doing since the pandemic, obviously when we all worked from home, and Macro4 worked from home for almost 2 years at that time, then that subsequently we've been pursuing a hybrid model where people come into the office typically a couple of days a week. And that sort of helped her a lot, and is really important to give her a little bit of time to sort of save time from the commute and save time with the with childcare as well. And she's also, as you could see from the picture, that she was transitioning back from maternity and will shortly be transitioning back from maternity again. I know the baby is very, very tiny at the moment, but she intends to come back to us around September. So having that ability to transition back, which works quite well again with IT, has been very important to her and has worked very well with her. To sort of just balance the needs. So that's sort of a little bit about why we did it and why we are doing IT and working in the mainframe, and we're quite happy with it. So given that we like it, how might we attract more women into IT? And you have to sort of wonder, why is IT so male dominated? And I've thought about this. There's a colleague that I have who has three boys actually, who are similar ages to my girls, and two of his sons are actually doing computer science degrees. But mine aren't doing computer science degrees, they're doing different degrees. They're doing sort of maybe STEMmy degrees, sort of maths, economics, one's doing education, one's doing psychology. But I didn't actually convince my daughters to go into IT. So I'm thinking, okay. So I don't really know why it's necessarily so male dominated, and we're going to sort of talk about some of our thinking as to why that might be. And I think the mainframe in particular is even more male dominated because of the maturity of the workforce, because there weren't as many women going into the area for, as they're hopefully we're encouraging more and more into it now. And I think the mainframe itself hasn't helped, because there's been a lot of press that, oh, the mainframe is old, and but it's very good. It's very important. Whereas actually we've shot ourselves in the foot, I think, in talking about the mainframe like that, somebody who's just coming out of a degree, they're not going to know that the mainframe is old. They're just going to, if you introduce it as this is core to anytime you book a hotel room, most of the times when you fly, anytime you use your credit card, it's likely that there's a mainframe in the background. Then people think, oh, I don't see it, but it's there. It's almost like the air that we breathe. It's always there. It's part of our everyday lives. And I think that sort of is really important to attract people into the mainframe in particular, but IT in general, to understand how important it is. But I think for women in IT, I think there's a lot of emphasis being put to try to start women, young women, girls as young as possible into STEM. A lot of people who've had any association with education will be aware of the STEM terminology: science, technology, engineering and maths, that they really push all through the school academic sort of times. And there's a very good website which I'd encourage people to look at, which is called the STEMettes website, and I've put a link in there, and that's actually a picture from their website. And their aim is to reach 500,000 young women and encourage them into STEM by 2025, which is quite a lot of reach. But I think that certainly from my own experience, with my girls and speaking to their friends and other sort of young people as they move into the industry, I think IT is kind of misunderstood in that it's thought that the only career maybe you could have is to be a coder, is to be a developer. And that's really not the case. I might have started out with that as a degree, but I haven't done coding for many years, but I'd still very much consider myself to be in IT. But I think for girls, a career needs to have maybe a purpose so that they can see that they would make a difference. It's more of a means to an end. And I find that even my daughters, they really like doing the coding that they're doing as part of a module for their degrees. So they could well end up still in IT, but they're using it for a different reason. And I think that's sort of very important for girls. They're less likely, and Dolly would have chipped in here to explain that she sort of feels that girls don't generally like games, which is very true. Most of them don't. They're more into the social media. So why not use that social media to advertise, or encourage the girls to maybe do something like, I don't know, an app in fashion, for instance. Maybe that's going to be of more interest than gaming to a lot of them. But I think for me as well, it seems to be somehow related to confidence. And there's a lot of research that's gone into that. For girls, it's actually better for them to be in a single sex environment as they go through their schooling, as they go through education, than it is for boys. So boys benefit, they do better in a mixed gender environment, whereas girls do better in a single sex. And you think, why is that? And the best sort of research says that it's something about the way boys, young men, and even grown men are willing to blag to an extent. They're willing to take the chance and say, yeah, I know the answer. Whereas the girl might have the answer from the outset, but she'll question herself when the boy sort of says, oh yeah, but it's this. This is the answer. And she thinks, oh, I'm maybe wrong. And actually, he could be convincing her that literally black is white. And I think, that carries through even when a lot of people are applying to jobs. There's a lot of, again, stats out there that men will apply for a job if they meet most of the criteria, whereas women will typically only apply for a job role if they tick everything. And when I put this stat up here, I run this session for a lot of women in our in Macro 4, and most of them said, yeah, that's me. I applied. And Dolly said herself, she said, yeah, I wouldn't have applied if I didn't have all of it. I needed to have every single thing. So that really does hold true, I think, that men are willing to take the chance and sort of think, well, yeah, I can just give it a go, whereas women are somehow often sort of less willing to take that jump. So I think, what could we draw out of that? I think definitely for anyone who's thinking of applying for a job, I think they should, and this could apply equally to men as women, apply if you have most of what somebody wants. If you think, yeah, but that would be, I know I don't have that particular skill, but I'd like to learn about it. Because I think for employers, when you're recruiting, there's an awful lot of that is in the press about how difficult it is to recruit into IT and into the mainframe. So people are putting out a job profile and they're maybe not expecting everything to be ticked when they get the applicants, when they look at the CVs. But so, that's why maybe men are more successful then, because they have ticked enough of the criteria for somebody to consider interviewing them. And then that's a whole different ballgame. But I think that for employers as well, I think they do need to think very seriously about what the criteria are that they want to put out there on their job adverts. And we've done that quite often in recent times, in the last number of years, really move things around as what is essential. And what is just desirable. It would be nice if. And when I ran this session in person, one of the audience participants said, yes, is that sort of why you see at the bottom of the job adverts, apply even if you don't have all of these things? And I said, yeah, that's one way of handling it, but in some ways that's a kind of an easy way out. And why would you put things on there that, if they weren't essential? But I think that's sort of partly why people have started adding that sort of thing onto the end of a job advert, because we know that it's difficult to find somebody with 100% of the skills. And the other thing that we've done in the last few years is we started a placement program, which is for sort of people who are 2 years into their degree, and then they take a year in industry, and then they go back and do their final year of their degree. And we've taken on just 2 R&D placement students each year for the last, I think we're coming into our 5th year now. But we didn't have that many applicants for women. And we thought, why is that? What are we doing? So we had a look at the advert, and we decided that in some cases we were, again, totally unintentionally, maybe using terminology which was a bit kind of challenging, like, have you got what it takes? Can you do this? And it was very much, I mean, these are sort of 20-year-olds. How do they know if they've got what it takes? So men or women, are young women or men, as they're sort of looking at this, might think, that sounds a bit scary. And you don't want your advert to sound off-putting. So you could totally unintentionally be putting things into your adverts that, just are turning people off. I mean, I was reviewing something for a careers page on Macro 4, and we said, do you think you have what it takes to do a key role in the company? And I'm thinking, well, not everybody that we employ is going to actually play a key role necessarily. They might not want to think that they're key, so that could be off-putting in itself. Of course, everybody on a team is important, but if somebody's reading that, they could read that in the wrong way. So you could, totally, again, without meaning to, you could be turning people off. So, and I think the other thing that we need to do, I think, as often as we can, is look around a CV, because you could get people who are changing careers. People are working longer, and now there's a lot of talk that, you know, you will have a number of careers through your working life. It's not how it used to be in our sort of necessarily parents' time, where you started a job and you just stayed there. You know, we not only would change roles to progress your career, but you would do something different entirely. And we have a developer who joined us last year, and he's doing a great job, but he didn't have he didn't have a degree in computer science. He had a different STEM related degree, and he did a conversion course to be a developer. And I took him on, and he's doing a great job. But what he did before he joined us was he was a teacher. So I potentially have somebody who could become a trainer, customer services trainer. So, you know, sometimes you get other opportunities from these people who are coming to change their career. So once you have females in IT, everybody wants to retain their staff for as long as possible. You know, that's beneficial for everybody to have that stability and to get that knowledge in there. And a lot of this is less about women, it's more about anybody, really, that all employees, I think, everybody has different strengths and weaknesses. The team would be very odd if you didn't have a full range of all of these skills. And often women are viewed as maybe being more collaborative, naturally, better mentors, naturally, perhaps. Certainly not always true, but I think as employees, it's worth everybody thinking, well, yeah, I am genuinely good at these things. Not all women are, not all men are bad at these things, but they sort of can grow into these strengths. And I think it's up to each person to sort of think, yeah, okay, I can do this. I am good at multitasking. I don't mind juggling a lot of things at one time. And I think as employers, I think it's important that we facilitate a change of direction from within. We've done that. I know there's another person who's on the team who's a female as well, who started off as a tester, and she's moved into, then she was a Java developer, and now she's moving into the mainframe as well. So she's perfectly happy, and we have all of that talent that she's brought to us from her original roles, and she's happy that she's doing something different, has a different challenge. So, you know, and also I was reminded that one of the people who went to GSE in person in November, he's in customer he's kind of a pre-sales person, a technical account manager, that's our term for it, within Macro 4. But he started off as a developer, and he changed a number of years ago, and he loves it because he likes the customer interaction. So, you know, that's another example where somebody, you know, they've changed completely what they do, really. But I think also as employers, it's important that you use female strengths, and I really put female in quotes here because they're not necessarily female at all, but use these things to your advantage. Sort of building a team sort of that you want to work on a particular task, it's helpful to have somebody who is going to do all of that questioning, get all those questions out there. If you're giving somebody a project to do, it's helpful if somebody does put those things out on the table, because then you firm up what it is you want from that. Because we've probably often been there, that you've given somebody a project and they've said, oh yes, I'll do that, and they come back and you think, this wasn't really what I wanted. Whereas if they'd got the questions out in the first case, maybe you would have clarified what you wanted them to do, and it would have been easier, and you would have gotten a better result at the end of it. So I think the other thing to bear in mind, which should start to address the balance that we need, is that attitudes definitely changing. I mean, childcare is far less of a female domain than it was. And I know that Dolly has a lovely story that she tells, that obviously when she was at home, that she suddenly realized that she could do the school runs. And prior to the pandemic, that her husband used to do the school run because she was always coming to the office. And she said, "Oh, I could do that." And he said, "No, I don't want to. I like doing it. I don't want you to take that away from me." And he's also noticed that since the hybrid working has taken off after post pandemic, that there are a lot more dads in the playground doing the drop off. So they want to do it. And that's a great thing. And the other a sort of little anecdote that I like to mention is that there's a guy who's in work. He's in the infrastructure team, and he has one daughter who just started school in the autumn. And I know he's changed his working day, so he takes a late lunch so that he can pick her up from school, because she's the absolute love of his life, and that's what he wants to do. And it's lovely to see that men as well as women have the opportunity now, with all of the changes around the shared parental leave, and that it's becoming a lot more acceptable. And years ago when I was growing up, if my father had appeared at the school gates, they would have seriously thought that somebody had died. So these are good changes that are happening. I think as well, employers are changing their view of work, and offering the flexible working pattern. And the pandemic was a massive boost to that, really, with the whole hybrid working. And IT was always flexible, but I think there's extra recognition that it can be flexible now. And I like to sort of mention maternity leave as sort of a little bit of the elephant in the room for women, because it used to be viewed as, oh, you couldn't maybe take on a woman many years ago, that because they might go off and have loads of children. But I mean, let's look at it. You work from in your 20s to in your 60s, which is 40 years, and you'll probably have maybe a couple of maternity leaves in the whole of that time, which is only maximum 2 years. That's 5% of your working life. So it's not, it shouldn't be viewed as a huge thing, because as well with maternity leave, it's very much planned leave. When I sort of knew that Dolly was expecting again, I chose a project for her to work on, which was related to Galasa. I don't know whether any of you have heard of that. It's an open source testing tool, automated testing tool that IBM have released. They're using it to test kicks. So that was very interesting for us to sort of have a look at and sort of see not only how we could use it, but how we could integrate with it. So that was the project that I gave Dolly, saying, do what you can. When you finish after Christmas, just after Christmas, it just bring to a halt, and we can pick it up again. So there are lots of opportunities like that in IT, that you can plan a project. They have starts and end, so you can plan around it. Unplanned leave due to sickness or anything else, you can't deal with it in the same way as you can with maternity leave. And I know that Dolly also talked about using kit days. And I don't know whether people are familiar with kit days, but they're very useful for both the employer and the employee, in that when somebody is going to return from maternity leave, they can use these keeping in touch days. That's what KIT stands for. They can use up to 10 of them before they return. And it's kind of like a dip your toe back in the water, because you've been away from the business for what seems like a long time. You've been doing something completely different. So these are a lovely way to sort of get you back in, so that then when you return to the office, you're back up and running. It isn't a hard stop and a hard start, if you know what I mean. It makes it easier to transition yourself back into work, to sort of do maybe a day a week, a day, a fortnight, and get everybody, including your family, used to you not being there, you sort of being in the office, whether that's from your home office or whether that's from your work office. So kit days are a really good innovation that weren't there for me, but they're excellent. They're really useful when you're returning. And I mean, the other sort of thing that's had a lot of press over the years and sort of comes up is the gender pay gap, which is closing. There's a lot of legislation coming through that if two people are doing the same job title, that, you know, they should be earning the same amount of pay. And there's a lot more transparency, particularly in Europe. It doesn't necessarily hold true all around the world, but it's certainly true for us where we are. And I think unintentionally, sometimes there can be some inequalities that sort of just come in to the sort of pay that people are earning. And it's just up to employers really to look at that. It could be that somebody joins the team and they just had a higher salary expectation, and then that causes a slight issue for others, and that can be tackled. So it's just up to employers to tackle it as they see it. And I think that's what a lot of people are trying to do. So really, I mean, I think we've talked around, really skirted around a lot of topics here about the work-life balance. And I think the most important thing from my perspective is to really make it work for you. And again, just drawing from when we did this session at the in-person GSE, a couple of the females sort of said, yeah, well, the way we made it work was our husbands or our partners did the school drop-offs. The way I made it work was I worked sort of 4.5 days a week. You know, so there's no right or wrong way. It's whatever it works for you. You know, you can look at social media, you can look at Facebook and see these people who have perfect lives. They don't really have that perfect a life. So you just do what works for you, for your family, for wherever you are in your life at that time. And but the big thing is there's no right or wrong way, and I think the pandemic has certainly taught us that, hasn't it? So back to the question that I started with was, how do you do it? And the more I thought about that question, the less I liked it. But I think the big thing is just do it your way. You'll find your own way. There's nothing right or wrong with whatever you do. I do IT. I have people, friends who make fabulous cakes, and I like to eat them, but it's not me. I'm not a cake maker. So that's how it works for me. This is my way. And I think for me as well, particularly with sort of my girls who are going to embark in their working lives fairly soon, I think it's important that, particularly for females who maybe want to be back with that confidence thing holding them back, they need to be brave. They need to take their chances so that they can capitalize on all of the strengths that everybody has. And that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope that was helpful. And I have the link as well in here with session 6.0 and for the feedback, which is very important. Yeah. So I think I'll go back to Aileen.
Thanks a million for that, Michelle. It's brilliant. That statistic about maternity leave being less than 5% of your working life just blew me away the first time, and I still think it's fascinating. So at this point, we have no questions in the chat. I have backed you up that Dolly loves coding more than I love the mainframe, and anyone who knows me, and there's quite a few on here, know that I have a little bit of a bias toward the mainframe. So, oh my God, she loves coding. I don't understand it myself, but Michelle was not making that up. As I say, we've had no questions so far. If anyone wants to ask a question, they're welcome to raise their hand and I can unmute them as well. And if people want to put their cameras on and we stop screen sharing, we can actually see who's in the room. That might be nice.
Okay.
I don't know if anyone has that camera on. It's looking to me like everyone has camera off except you, me, and yeah, just you and me. But yeah, that was really, really interesting.
I felt it was nice. I found it very interesting when I've run it. I ran it for the females in Macro 4 and ran it at GSE. And every time you get a slightly different perspective, you get another little piece of information, which is nice to hear, really.
I do have a bit of a question about the talking about the maturity of the workforce, because I'm kind of the people I work with on, are we actually mature?
No,
But
no.
no, I don't know.
Well seasoned. We're
We're well
appreciating.
seasoned. I'm comfortable with that, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's also great to see the way in which nowadays people are able to, men and like dads and granddads and brothers are able to look after and share the responsibilities of their, of their little people.
Yes. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. Because and things have been changing slowly over time, because I would never have gone near my dad's office, would never have seen it until I actually worked in it. Whereas my youngest sister used to every so often get brought into his office and sit under his desk and draw pictures
Oh.
for she used to draw pictures for the people that visited him in his office and hand them up to him, which was fine until she started working with one of said people as her senior manager one day, and he mentioned the fact in front of her. Bear in mind, this is a girl who was at the time in her 20s and a little bit unsure, and he mentioned in front of her manager that he remembered the picture that she'd drawn him.
Oh.
Oh, it was fun times.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, it is nice to sort of these days when they encourage bring your child to work day kind of thing. I've sort of sat there with other people's children to sort of try to say, well, what do you like to do? And yeah, it
How
is
cool is this?
interesting
How cool is
because
the best job ever? This is what we need to keep telling people.
yeah, and I guess it's nice that they get the feeling that it isn't this sort of weird place that you go to. This is sort of this is just normal.
It's normal, and it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah.
And the thing is, to be fair, you're right. There are so many variations and things. I'm not a coder either. I've never been a coder, but
Yeah, that I think is a big issue,
huge.
really, with because I've been looking for sort of reskilling courses, and actually, there's reskilling for coding.
Yeah.
And then there's sort of basic skills, like if you don't have any IT skills, like in Word or PowerPoint or that sort of thing. But there's nothing in between. And you think, well, surely there should be like IT customer services training or, consultancy trainers or, do you know what I mean?
In Ireland, so the UK haven't signed up to this. There are 6 or 8 European countries that have signed up to it's called Women for IT. It came into Ireland through the Irish Computer Society, and they actually do that. They took women who were returning to the workforce. Some of them would have been mature students, some of them would have been single mums and people like that who were slightly disadvantaged, and took them in, found the best types of training, but customer service, can't remember what they were. There was data analytics was one of them as well. I went to a couple of the presentations on it, but really, really good program. They're looking to roll it out further.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, because you see, there's so many different skill sets, aren't there, that you need. Like for your role, the systems administration, it's completely different. All of that problem solving stuff, which is totally different to sort of typically what some of the developers are sort of excellent at. But it's just a different way of thinking, isn't it? And I think that's totally underappreciated, really, the variety of the careers.
Lads, come on, somebody else give us a question. There's plenty of yous there. And I've got stories I'd like to tell about people, but they're in the room, so I'm kind of going, it's really their story to tell. It's not working very well. They're all very quiet and very shy. Yeah, no, we have no one. No one's taken
No, it's all
really,
right.
really, guys. Oh
On
well.
silence.
It is. The silence is deafening. But it's a fascinating subject. And well, obviously you and I find it fascinating and think there's so much that can be done. It would be great if I know other people do too. They're just a bit quiet.
Yeah, it is something that, because of sort of doing the placement program and sort of setting up graduate training plans and all of that, it's something that I sort of really would like to sort of see succeed, as it were, for people.
I think oh, okay, we have one here. Can you tell us a bit more about your journey from tech support role to a leader?
Yeah, that was actually a bit of a journey to the dark side, away from the mainframe originally, because I was working in support for on the mainframe products, and writing fixes and all of that sort of stuff for quite a long time. And then the Macro 4 acquired an open systems business. So I set up the team to support that. And then we've all merged subsequently. So I got them, all the people I was working with, and I ended up sort of having them back again. So yeah, it was something that I guess I was mentored to take on the role to sort of learn those products. So then I sort of, that started out, I guess, more as a mentoring role for me, and then became a leader role. So
I'm just going to ask you to unmute in case there is anything else you would like to ask. And if anyone else wants to ask a question, I'm quite happy to unmute them. A couple of years ago, I did a session for my niece's school, and this reminds me very much of it because all of the students had their cameras off, and it's very strange.
yeah.
You know,
And,
how you're hitting. Yeah.
I forgot to mention that on the STEM thing, that I do a little bit of that in my daughter's secondary school. Still, they sort of invite you back as sort of, they try to get all of these different careers people together, and you get the whole of a particular year group all in the hall, and they're all at tables of sort of 6 or 8, and it's like speed career dating. And you go in, yeah, and you have 5 minutes and you sit at a table with, and I have to say, right, I'm in IT, so it's all about computer science, kind of STEM. Are you STEMmy, any of you? And of course, half of them, they're thinking, because it's an all-girls school, as I sort of mentioned. And so a lot of them have to, oh no, we're not, because again, they've already decided by the time they get to 16 or 18 that it's all about just about coding.
Coding, and it's so not.
And so, and they like STEM, they like maths, they might like sort of chemistry, they might like biology, but they've somehow decided that, oh no, because the only thing that they've been introduced to above the sort of the basic skills, let's say, is coding.
Yeah.
So it's but it's a good thing to do, to sort of explain it, and it's nice actually to sit with the girls and sort of, because you sort of say things and you think, oh yeah, I actually do believe that. I do believe what I'm saying.
Reminding you.
Yeah. So it is a useful thing to do. So
yeah. Okay. I've getting the feeling that nobody else here is going to ask any questions, so maybe we will wrap up the session.
That's fine. So
what I will do is say, first of all, please everybody remember to do the feedback. I've just put the link in again. It's also on the QR code, which you'll find, and there's a link to it on your BYOA. So that's that. Thank you so much, Michelle. That was a really good session.
Thank you. Thanks to everybody for joining. That's good.
And hopefully we'll see we'll see some of you in November, and hopefully there will be more with sessions. There's another couple of there's another few sessions on today for the rest of the conference, so hopefully everyone can go and enjoy them as well. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Aileen.
Thanks.
See you later. Everyone. Bye.